Talk Shoe. Recorded live.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you listen to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 681. My name is Eric Nilsson, and with me today, I have my regular co-host, Matt Lungeth. Today is Thursday, February 28th, 2024. Matt, how are you doing today?
Eric, I am well. Lots of news coming out of the EUC space this week with KKR, a private equity firm, announcing that they have won the stalking horse race as far as picking up what was VMware's EUC division, which I'm sure we'll get into with all the details there. But otherwise, I am doing well. My favorite question, sir, that I haven't been able to ask in a while, how are you? How are things out there on the West Coast? And most importantly, what is the color of the bay?
Hey, I am doing well. We're busy, Broadcom moves at light speed. There's always stuff going on. And so Mobile World Congress is going on this week. So everybody in the Palo Alto office is over in Barcelona, Spain at the Fiera, as we know how that goes. So they're all out there, but we're happy here in California. And it is beautiful sunny weather today. So we've had a nice little blue sky moment. We got another storm system coming in next week, but expect the mountains to wash away yet again. But for right now, it's sunny and beautiful, and the bay, color of the bay is just a nice muddy green because we've had just so much rain that we got plenty of water coming off. I'm hoping that the aquifer in California will refill. Lake Mead, which is the Hoover Dam Lake, is up to recovering now, which is really good. So a lot of water.
I just looked at that a couple of weeks ago, and it was still like 150 feet below what they'll call nominal conditions, but compared to where it had been, it's significant.
Yeah. And I think I just listened to a report this morning is that now it was 140 feet below nominal conditions, but gaining 10 feet of water in that lake is significant. So happy about that. A lot of water, more water coming next week, but right now blue skies. So welcome to California, middle of the winter. Got a little bit of blueness coming up. Corey Romero, I know VExperts went out this week. I know I saw 1 million VExpert congrats going out all throughout Monday. I think it was last Friday. I think last Friday.
Yeah, Friday.
What's the update? How did you manage to get everybody that want to be a VExpert trained to be VExperts? How did the tool go? What's the status?
The tool was a little bumpy just because we implemented the new pending process, but it's working out great. It's actually allowing us to message back and forth fairly quickly with a lot of the applicants who have either pending applications or applications that were denied, and they're doing appeals. So right now, I've got a page up, and it's the link to it is via.vmw.com, and it's /2024 updates. And so this page is updated throughout the day, and you can track all of the post activities that we're doing. So you can track things like pending and appealed applications, where we are, licenses, when are those coming, VExpert Communications Channel, which is the platform we all talk on, and VMware subprograms and certificates and badges. So with the subprograms this year, we've got 12 programs focused around VCF. So excited about those. And then, of course, the VExpert Pro program. So things are going well, and we are still going through the appealed applications and the denied applications through probably going to be through the weekend. So the last day to submit an appeal is Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Nice. All right. Well, I hear we have 17 million VExperts now, so congratulations to that.
17.5.
Okay, 17.
What is the real number? Where are we sitting at now?
Right.
Right now, we are at 1241. Right. And we still have a lot of appeals coming in. So, those are piling in, and we're processing every single one.
So nice. Congratulations to everybody that is working for us. And I know we've heard some conversations about VExperts and, are they going to give their time to Broadcom and all that? And I got to say that give it some time. Broadcom is changing. VMware is changing Broadcom, and Broadcom is changing VMware, as we well know. And so give it time. I think the product sets are still great. And I think that everything will settle down, and maybe you will once once again want to be the experts. So, we're not counting anybody out right at this time. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
before we talk a little bit about the EUC acquisition, I do want to introduce our guests, or at least tell you about the topic today. We wanted to talk some community. We want to have some community talk around what is it like to build communities. We take advantage of the fact that we're VMware, and VMware is massive, and we have 5 million administrators out there, and Tommy Berry, who used to work on our team, is with us today. He's over at Couchbase now, and I think he got Marketer of the Year over at Couchbase. So we thought we'd have him on and get his perspective of what it's like to build a community at Couchbase where you don't have 5 million practitioners, and you are trying to build a brand and build awareness. And so we thought we'd have Tommy in and give us some of those best practices that he's seeing working in a slightly different ecosystem. So Tommy's with us today. We'll get to him. But before we jump into that subject, I did, Matt, want to talk a little bit about KKR, which is the investment firm that did purchase the EUC group. And I'll start by telling a story. When I first came out of college, I was married and I read a book, and Matt's putting out his hold on a minute, because maybe he's got this book. There it is. Barbarians at the Gate. That's right. That was one of my first big books out of college I read, where no one told me that I had to read a book. I just kind of wanted to read an interesting financial book. And so Barbarians at the Great Gate is about KKR purchasing Nabisco, right? And it is a fascinating read. It is a huge book, but I never put it down. I think I read it in a week straight. Every spare moment I got, I read it.
It is a New York Times bestseller. It is often referenced in multiple, let's call it higher end MBA classes. And there was also a movie that made out of it. It's a complex path to follow, but the book does an excellent job of trying to put together a huge cast of characters that goes into that story.
Yeah. And I found it just riveting, all the behind the scenes activities that go on in a acquisition, right? And how many things are at play, and how many different sub companies and lawyers and financiers are at play to put some of these big deals together when you're talking billions of dollars. Just a fascinating read, right? So that's my first step. And so now here I am 40 years later in my career, and here we are. KKR is actually impacting our lives, right? And I think it is interesting. What's your take on KKR, or what do you think the reactions are from the EUC community? Because Matt, I know you work in the EUC community. What's your impressions?
Well, for those not playing along at home, let's just do a quick summary, right? So, almost 2 years ago now, or coming up on 2 years ago, Broadcom announces the intent to take over VMware. And as part of that buyout, if you will, they had also announced that they did not intend to keep the end user computing EUC division. So the EUC composes of the two most popular products that most people would know would be the Horizon Suite and Workspace ONE. And then there's also DEAM in there as well, which is Digital Employee Experience Management, or DEX, that whole entire Workspace ONE intelligence and some of the automation behind it. All in all, 105 some odd products in the whole entire portfolio suite. So that process then kicks off a whole entire conversation with different firms that we're going to come to, buy out these assets that were EUC. And KKR, as was announced over actually Monday, this past Monday, with the 26th, was the ultimate winner in that stalking horse, as I had mentioned at the top of the call. And this is a very big, global firm. One of the first private equity firms that was really out there. It was founded by two partners, Henry Kravis and George Roberts, and then their mentor, which was Jerome Kohlberg. So that's where you get the KKR.
Kohlberg, Kravitz.
And they have, their portfolio is not just tech. So it's large global organizations that needed that private equity boost that was out there. 1-800 contacts, Lyft, a multitude of organizations that were there. Now, to answer your question, Eric, what does this mean for EUC? Now, I will also say that this is my own opinion and does not reflect the values or any official forward-looking statements of either KKR, Broadcom, VMware, or what have you. I think
Personal
that this, personal opinion, this presents a tremendous opportunity for a well-developed EUC portfolio to become even better, right? Whereas a lot of our focus, especially within application and desktop delivery, was, and understandably so, centered around the vSphere hypervisor. Although we played well and had multiple offerings on hyperscalers, some of the other hypervisors that were out there are maybe not so much. So I think this allows us to expand a little bit. And also one of the things that KKR is known for is allowing, let's say, organizations to, set their own pace and set their own tone to go and grow and do what they need to do to be that next chapter of the organization. So hopefully limited interference or limited guide rails, so to say, for where we want to go with EUC in general.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
All right. Lots of opportunity there.
I would say that there are two things that I think back that up. One is I heard that they're going to move the headquarters down into Palo Alto Creekside camp, area. And so, still independent company running, in Palo Alto headquartered, but, maybe, just, down to the south side of the campus. So that's interesting in that they're thinking about having a headquarters in Palo Alto. That's a rumor. I don't know for sure whether that's happening or not. And then two, I noticed coming out of Mobile World Congress that VeloCloud, which was named something else, we renamed VeloCloud Edge Computing, something else. They've now come back and re-announced VeloCloud as the name, as the brand, kind of running as the edge networking solutions. So I see the impact of Broadcom is, shifting the brand more to brand specific solutions to go after markets. So it doesn't surprise me that then spinning off that, you could have this independent brand that could, actually grow. Right. So that's interesting. Good to see. Good to see. So thanks for that update, Matt. We'll stay tuned and hopefully we'll learn more as the whole integration progresses.
We'll keep you briefed as more information comes out. The deal is expected to close sometime in 2024. A new name has not been announced. That will be synonymous probably in and around the closing date. So whatever this new entity will be named and branded is still TBD. So cool. More updates to come, but lots of good. The industry too is looking at this. We had talked about this prior to the start of the call. The feedback and out there from the EUC community is a positive one. So that's also very, very encouraging that that we're headed here in the right direction with KKR.
Nice. Well, all right. Now that we got through that, a lot of news cycle, I want to introduce Tommy Berry. Tommy, as always, in our community podcast, we like to spend the first 5 minutes talking about your career arc. How did you get where you are today? What have you learned? And then we'll get into Couchbase and a little bit of what Couchbase does. Yeah. And then we'll talk about what you've been doing over there.
All right. Well, thank you for having me on. This is pretty crazy being back on the podcast. Never thought I'd be back here, but I'm here. And I tried to back out last second, but I heard that this was going to be going viral. People had all the marketing behind it, so there was no going back at that point. But yeah, so I'm Tommy. Was the social media manager at VMware for many, many years. Started off as an intern working with Corey and Eric
And as you
And
mentioned, Tony Dunn and the rest of the
well,
crew.
I was going to get to
Yeah.
Tony. I was going to get to Tony. Yeah, no, just it was pretty crazy because that's when we launched the advocacy platform. That's still alive and well today. Still my baby. I still hold it near and dear, but it's in good hands with Noel. But you know, started running that program during my internship, and I really didn't do any of the social stuff. It was all the advocacy and some of the training and stuff like that. But Carrie Chamberlain, she was the one who's running all the social. And so I was lucky enough. You gave me a job offer to come back full time after I graduated, and so I did. And I always remember this story, and it's always funny when I tell it to other people, at least. But it seems so ordinary. Just working on the community team is the first day I start, and I was hired to do social selling in the advocacy platform. And you're like, yeah, there's a change of charter. You're actually going to be running all the social media as well. So day one, thrown right into the fire. I was doing advocacy and social media, working with Tony Dunn. Did that for, I don't know, let's say 4 years or whatnot. And, things over time kind of evolved and changed. And then I was able to take a little more ownership of the social program. And we had, interns and contractors come in and kind of pick up the slack and help to expand the program to doing all of like the VMworld social at the time, then the VMware Explorer social. So it was just kind of a major kind of reach of everything social at the company, also running the Center of Excellence. So just meeting with all the different stakeholders. And, at VMware, there's like 150, or formerly VMware, there were like 150 different channels and all these different channel owners. So it was a lot to manage, but it was a lot of fun. And then just when, the Broadcom deal was announced, I had a pretty good feeling about our team, and obviously, it's still intact today. So that's all great. But I think that was just kind of the universe's way of telling me it was time to try something new. And so as much as I love my time at VMware and working with all of you, decided to, take the next step. And I actually went over to a company called Couchbase. And so I'll get into it in a little bit, just kind of what Couchbase is. But basically my role over there is very similar to what I'm doing, or what I did at VMware. It's very similar. So I'm running all the social media channels. I run their version of the advocacy platform. I just work with all the different people across the company, doing all the different requests, global events. I even do some executive comm stuff. So I write some, LinkedIn posts and stuff for executives, which is pretty fun. I wasn't doing that so much at VMware, but again, very similar to what I was doing at VMware, and the company itself has very similar values. And just their community kind of strategy is very similar. It's much smaller, and we'll get into that, but they have a very similar strategy of kind of building organically, through advocates and influencers and identifying that. And that's kind of, the key to growth and getting your brand out there and in front of people.
So when we spun up advocacy, obviously we have the experts, right? And we have, 2000 the experts at the time, or some number like that. Corey runs that. And, these guys have blogs, and, a lot of them, been blogging for years. And so there's a bit of me that goes, okay, that was kind of easy when we have Dynamic Signal. A lot of we invited all of the experts to Dynamic Signal. So I think that was, easy to do because we have thousands of people that are, ready and willing to do that. When you're talking about, implementing it at a smaller company, right? And you have to convince people to blog, right? Or to do that. Is it a different vibe when you're trying to get them to understand how to, and, advocacy is a tool that everybody signs up and you post it in, and then everybody gets to see everybody's posts. It's like the sharing neighborhood of all the social channels. So you don't have to look at every single social channel. You can just watch your advocacy feeds. What's your impression of that when you're starting out at a new company?
Yeah, I mean, I think you set the stage pretty good. I mean, I guess just since VMware was all I knew, I kind of just assumed, hey, this is easy. There's, hundreds of thousands of people who love your products, and they're on Twitter, and they're blogging, and it's just, once you create these programs, you already kind of have a built-in audience, and there's a lot of people who just raise their hand. They're willing to opt into it. And so we had a lot of success really early on with a lot of the programs, and you guys still do. Anytime you launch something new, it just, for the most part, has a really good response from the community. It's really easy. And that's a testament to all the work you guys do, obviously. But going to Couchbase, I think that was a big difference. Was I kind of just assumed, like, it's a publicly traded company, big tech company. Like, they surely probably have a ton of people who are organically talking about the brand and, you know, an established, you know, the expert program at Couchbase. It's called an ambassador program, but that just wasn't really the case. And so, one of the main things you really have to rely on, and it's, you know, you have to start here, is your employees are kind of the number one thing you can start with and rely on. When there's not a lot of people out there who are raising their hands and talking about your brand, I mean, really, you have to do a lot as the brand to start those conversations and initiate the conversations. And so the one audience you can easily, you know, tap into and, you know, train the people and give them the resources to say the right things and do the right things and whatnot is the employees. So I think that's where I saw a lot of success in my first year, was similar to what we did with the advocacy program at VMware, was just, let's make sure every single person at the company, you know, is familiar with advocacy, is familiar with social media, and they know how to use it. So it's similar to your concept of, you know, social media should be like PowerPoint. You know, everyone should know how to use it. Everyone should know how to do it. And I think I took a similar mentality to Couchbase, was like, let's start here. Everyone should know about this platform. Everyone should know about how to, you know, use LinkedIn effectively, how to use Twitter effectively. Here's the best content. Here's how to write good tweets, get engagement, and let's start the conversation there. So I think that was kind of the first win, and you kind of have to start there. And then the second thing is just, again, there's a lot more at VMware. When you announce something, you want people to opt into things, like there's a lot of people who raise their hand because they want to be a part of it. Where I think what I've noticed at Couchbase, or probably other companies too, is you have to do a lot more of the identification of people. So if you see someone who is maybe blogging on Medium about Couchbase, and they don't even know about our community or our offerings or how to, you know, maybe contact us or follow us on social media, like, you have to be proactive about reaching out to them, starting that relationship, very grassroots, very organically, kind of, you know, say, hey, why don't you check this resource out, or have you ever thought about doing this? And then slowly kind of integrate them into the community. And then once they kind of have more of a sense of what we're about and what we have to offer, then that's when you can kind of try to elevate them to what we call as like an ambassador status. But again, I think the difference is just a lot more of, we have to identify who the people are out there. And so I do a lot of listening. You have to be on a lot of different platforms. It's community platforms, it's social media, but you just have to be looking for the right things and identify the people and then invite them in, versus, you know, waiting for them to raise their hand. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I remember, you know, you brought me back to two separate points there. One is when we started, me and John Troyer started vExperts. John was like struggling with like, how do I get this kicked off? We can't do this. I have no idea what to do. And I just sat down and said, okay, you know, John, you work on the, you know, you were watching Twitter, you were watching blog. I said, give me 15 people. And I sat and I still have the sheet of paper. I kept it, right. And he's like, no. And I said, no, here, vExperts, give me one. And he gave me one name, Duncan Epping. I said, okay, great. That's one. Wrote it down. Number two, who we got, you know, and we managed to squeak out 12 or 15 names. I think we got up to like 18 or 19 names. And then we reached out to them going, hey, guess what? We're starting a vExpert program, and we've selected you. We've noticed you're out there, and we'd like to create this program. And, you know, then it went 15, 20, then we got to 35. The next year we got to 60, you know, maybe, you know, over time, maybe it's like 3 years to get to 60. And you're right. It's a one-off kind of scenario where you have to actually go recruit the people. So that's fascinating.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes down to the value for the person too, because I feel like, you know, most companies, you know, have these type of programs at this point, but, you know, a lot of people can look at them as, you know, these are just marketing programs. People just, you know, the companies just want to say we have this amount of people in the program. So it's really about marketing the people and making it all about them. And I think VMware has always done a really great job about this. Like, I legitimately feel like vExpert is about the vExperts and the people. And that's why it's been so successful and continues to grow every year. So I think when you go into these conversations and you find these people, you just need to make it really important. Like, this is about you because you're great at what you do. You're talking about our brand. You can teach other people, you know, the stuff that, you know, like the knowledge you have about our company and about our products. And like, we think you're a great candidate to do that. So we would like to help like elevate you and kind of market your personal brand, market your blog and everything, so you can continue to do that. Because what we saw at VMware, and I see at Couchbase, is a lot of times it's the people who are, you know, these advocates who are just out there and on their own time, writing about your company and doing stuff and running VMware, Couchbase in their day jobs, like those people tend to do the best job of telling the company's story and how to use their products, even more so than the company themselves and the marketers. So, why wouldn't you take advantage of that and try to build these programs around those people?
What is Couchbase? We should have done that. Just give me the 1 minute elevator pitch.
Yeah.
What does Couchbase do? Is that the
So-
one that I go up to San Francisco and I get a free couch and I stay at my buddy's house and
That might
wait,
be couch. Yeah, you might be kind of close, kind of close. So I'll do a quick kind of history lesson here, and just a preface for everyone. I know we're already like 25 minutes into this, but this is not going to be a technical podcast. So there's only going to be a few technical questions, at least coming towards me. So I'll do my best to explain here. But basically, so Couchbase is a database company. It actually has been around since 2011, even though we didn't go public until 2021. It started with the merger of Membase and Couch1. So anyone out there heard of Membase, Couch1? Okay, if you've heard of them, you win. Can anyone here on the call tell me what Couch stands for? It's actually an acronym. Okay. Cluster of
makes me
unreliable
sleepy.
commodity hardware. Yeah, exactly. It's
Cluster-
cluster
wait,
of
say that
unreliable commodity hardware.
Cluster reliable.
Cluster of unreliable commodity hardware.
Oh, cluster of unreliable commodity hardware. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's actually, it's an acronym. But yeah, so most people prior to the IPO in 2021 would probably be familiar with Couchbase Server, which was our on-prem offering. But since 2021, we launched Capella, which is our cloud database as a service. So, Capella for Couchbase is like vSphere for VMware. So everyone who's a VMware customer.
Couch is a database engine that is designed to run on, small server, unreliable server kind of node-based environment where you make a cluster of them and then you have a database running and the database is supposed to be very reliable, et cetera, right? I assume that's the original intent.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And so again, Capella is our database as a service. And so that's kind of like where everything's behind Capella. So again, similar to VMware with vSphere, it's kind of synonymous, like Capella with Couchbase, synonymous. And so basically what we are and what our message to the market is we're the cloud database for modern applications or adaptive applications. And so, when you think about the importance of applications and the rise of AI, it's all about the data. Every application needs a database. And then with AI, LLMs, Gen AI, it's all trained by and relies on data. So companies like Couchbase, we're uniquely positioned to be the database that powers all of those AI and adaptive applications that are either currently on the market or they're being developed. So, you might have apps that when you open them, it's a completely tailored user experience that takes them into or takes into account, the user's shopping preferences or their location, the weather around them, whatever it might be, and give them personalized offers and a dynamic viewing experience. Like that's kind of the adaptive application we're talking about here in Couchbase. It's really only possible to have those when you have a database like Couchbase. So we do have a bunch of, customers you're probably familiar with, like PayPal, PepsiCo, UPS, United, Carnival Cruises, Wells Fargo, Domino's, LinkedIn even. So a lot of these companies are building, those type of experience and apps using Couchbase. A few other things, just on the developer front, developers, the ones actually building the apps. We did recently announce Capella IQ, which is our AI coding assistant for developers that they can access directly within the Capella UI. And so this just speeds up a lot of tasks. It can write SQL, can create test data, suggest indexes, and it's also available via plugin from JetBrains and VS Code for people who want to access it. One last note, also Couchbase, it's available on all the major hyperscalers. You can buy it through the marketplaces. We have partnerships with Azure, GCP, AWS. So yeah, we're definitely gaining momentum.
So your community is more a developer-centric community, not necessarily an IT community, but very similar because it's probably technically complex. And you're not actually you're a service, so you are giving them a service that then if you were buying the on-prem version, your old version, then you were installing it and setting it up, and there is a crossover into IT there. But then as everything goes into SaaS, you're pretty much a SaaS service as well. Matt, I'm going to let you ask a question because I know I would just sit and talk to Tommy all day. So I'm going to force you to come up with at least one question.
Nothing technical, Matt.
I'm going to have a statement, and then I'll follow it up with a question. And this is just something I've observed lately. And then, again, this is kind of my personal opinion. I'll see what you guys have to think on this. I think one of the key to a community, especially when you're starting out with a net new community, is you need to have people involved with that community that you might not necessarily, how do I say this gently, initially consider. You not only do we want to have a diverse audience, but we want to have a lot of opinions in the room. And especially we want to, sometimes I think that the best people to have in your community are the ones that are the most vocal, and maybe even the most vocal in a critical way against your product. Because those people that speak out, one, they're speaking, right? Which is, and sometimes in the tech circles, a difficult thing to do. So you're checking the box there. And two, for a person to express that, they have to be passionate about the product. And the passion about the product can go in one direction or another, but they're passionate nonetheless because they're vocal about it. So in any key, again, in my opinion, when you're starting out with a community like this, or even going through a different iteration of a community, to integrate sometimes those voices that we may not initially want to hear, I think is absolutely crucial. So I'll turn that over to Tommy, and I'll let Tommy comment on that and see what his take is on who we should be including in groups.
Would probably more speak to the VX.
Tommy, we lost your audio. At least I did.
Yeah, I did as well. No audio. Yeah. Up there we go. No.
Tommy's switching audio sources. It's okay.
The AirPods don't love you. Yep. Nope.
No. Well, Eric, Tommy's not worked out.
Wait until Tommy shows back up on the audio. Matt, it is a good point that community is about building, a very inclusive model where you have different levels of community. I remember John Troyer in the early days were like, no, I want the best of the best. It has to be, the experts have to be like the top tier of the influencers, like the Influencer 100 that we have. And I think that's fine. That's a strategy, right? That you can do. But if you want to compete against Microsoft or your competitors, you better have a very broad community and a very broad voice, because one person's definition of somebody great is not the same as another person's definition of somebody great, right? And so I don't want to be discriminatory like that. I want the market to decide who's great. If people don't want to listen to this podcast, they don't have to, right? And then, and then I'll see my numbers, and then other people will get different audience members. And the more people you have doing things, just more voices you have, the better it is. And to discriminate against voices is probably not the way to go. So I look at it not not restricting I'll take lower people or people that might not deserve it. I just go, no, the whole thing is open, right? And the more people I can have in there, and the more money I can make them, more traffic I can drive them, I'm not going to decide who is good and who's not. I'll let the market decide that.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
You can.
Okay, I don't know
Live
what
live.
happened there, but we're good now. But yeah, I would really tend to agree with what Eric just said. I think that's something, Eric, you taught me a long time ago is, you don't want to let just anyone, like absolutely anyone into the programs. Like it still needs to have, value, and you want the people who are accepted to feel like they deserve to get the recognition. But at the same time, if you get to this point where you just make it so difficult to get into and you turn so many people away, like they're going to find other technology to work with, and they're going to go to other companies and try to be a part of those programs instead. So it really is best to be open, or at least I like what you guys do with the application product a process for a vExpert is if someone doesn't make the cut, give them the feedback on how they can make the cut next time and kind of work through the process. Because again, you don't want to just have these super exclusive programs where they're so hard to get into and people are just upset about who gets in and who doesn't get in. So it's like, give people a path to get in. And if they don't on the first try, like walk them through what it takes to be a vExpert and get that distinction. So I think that's always a good thing. And in terms of the negative voices, I think with the vExpert program, we can all definitely agree there's been fair share of controversies and not liking certain, moves that maybe the program has done or VMware has done in the past or anything. But I think those are some of the things that, even though they're difficult to deal with at the time, they're what pushed the program forward. And I think it's good that, the leadership of these community programs does take those opinions into account so they can change things for the betterment of the entire community. So I definitely think it's a good thing to include those people, unless they're just being like toxically negative and they're not helping, it's not productive, they're not willing to have a productive conversation. But generally, I think with most things, you want to have differences of opinion, and that's what makes like a good, vibrant community for sure. And then actually one more note on that point when it comes to like a Couchbase is, when you're starting a community that is, so much smaller in scale, like I think right now our ambassador program is about, 16 people, is, sometimes you don't really have the liberty to turn people away. So when there are people who are raising their hands and they do want to be involved, I think whether it's a super positive voice all the time, negative somewhere in between, I think you definitely, take that into account, but you don't want to push anyone away, especially early on in the infancy of the program. So I think you should definitely be, inclusive of all those different kind of backgrounds and opinions for sure.
Makes sense. I guess I'll ask the question between IT practitioner and developer. Somebody joked to me a couple of years ago, I can't remember who it is, that I think it was Robin Matlock, said that, if you look at the developers, they all show up and they got crazy shirts on and they got beards, and they're definitely a different crowd than the IT guys. And in the evenings, the IT guys go drink themselves silly sometimes, flip cup and, just beer and more beer. And the developers are sitting around in hackathons coding, and they're much more technical, geeky, let's write some more code and do something. Do you see a difference in the audience when you went to Couchbase versus, at VMware?
I think there's definitely some crossover from the audiences, but it's definitely more different than I thought. Like I thought, it's still Bay Area tech, and I know it's, databases, but like, there's still going to be some similarities, and there's going to be people who know about Couchbase, but I was pretty astounded the difference in the audiences. And it is kind of similar to like the last few years, working at VMware, at least from like an outbound marketing, it was pretty much all catering to developers, or at least a lot of it was catering to developers. And I would say that's mostly what it is here at Couchbase. It's pretty much all developers we're talking to. And I definitely do think there is a lot of that, of the developers. A lot of them are behind the computer screen and they're writing code. And, like you said, participating in things like hackathons. But I will also say developers love to go to events. So one of the big things that kind of part of our strategy to be able to get in front of more people and to connect and bring them into our programs is we go to so many events, like all these global events, whether they're super niche, small developer ones, whether they're the huge, massive ones like AWS reInvent, that's one of our biggest investments of the year, is developers. I mean, I can't even name how many developer events there are around the world, every year now. And it's really important to go to all of them, especially again, when you're such a small company. The most important thing is you just need to get in front of people. They need to see your logo. They need to meet you. They need to see your brand. And so I think that's been a really big thing for developers, is just going out to those events and meeting people in person, which, nowadays, so much of it is over the computer and online and in communities, that it still is really important to see people, first, to make that connection.
Yeah, I guess these guys are inventing things
Mhm.
and they're using your products to invent new things versus VMware, our products are used, right? You deploy, you architect, you deploy, then it's there, then it's being used by the application stacks to run things. So once you kind of deploy, you're good for a little while and then you're managing versus inventing the constant new APIs, new things to invent, how to invent them. So definitely a much closer. Does that mean that you end up on the road more now, or can you do that from your home office?
Yeah, so I do a lot of it from home. I've traveled a few times for work, but most of what I'm doing is at home. But we do have a developer relations team, a community team, and they are going all over the place all the time. Field marketing teams, of course, as well. But yeah, those are the people who are literally on the ground at pretty much every developer conference you could think of, and then they just send me all the content, and I kind of support from back home. So it turns out to be a pretty good process without me having to travel a whole bunch. But it would be cool to go to a few of them. Like, I will say that's one thing I miss about being on the community team at VMware, is just we had the opportunity. Like, obviously there was VMworld and Explore, which was our flagship event. But even being able to go to, like an AWS reInvent, that was always some of the, it was a lot of work and it kind of sucked, but it was also, one of the most rewarding and fun parts of the job in the year. And, Couchbase, after COVID happened, they kind of have temporarily at least shut down doing our own flagship event. So most of what we're doing is just going as a trade show kind of booth, going to all these other shows, but I haven't been involved too much at this point.
This is relevant, I hope, for a lot of us as we find ourselves now at Broadcom being in divisions and more freedom to do more direct marketing. So I know that we've worked with the individual divisions, and Michael Roy for VCF, for instance, is working on community strategies for VCF, right? We never had an individual in a group that was, targeting just community members. So I think all of us are learning to be a little bit closer to our customers and influencers and advocates that are very specific to a set of products, right? And Matt, I can imagine as EUC gets spun off, you'll be experiencing the same kind of focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a natural iteration of product development, if you will, and it goes along with the not only the product short journey, but the organization's journey as well.
And so, Tommy, one thing I should also, before we run completely out of time, you have left VMware and you did land on your feet, and you are doing very similar type of work. So for all the people that haven't been as lucky as maybe ourselves here, where we did pick up, I know there are a lot of people in the VMware ecosystem that are out of work or are looking for something different. Maybe they just want to move on from Broadcom. Maybe they're out of work. What's your is there life after VMware, and what's your impression of life after VMware?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like it was pretty hard for me to imagine a life after VMware. Like I thought I was just gonna, and I don't know if it was just, me being young and not experiencing anything else, but I honestly thought I was going to be a VMware lifer. I mean, I loved it. I loved working for you. We had a lot of fun. The community was great. Loved all the people I worked with. But so I thought it was going to be hard to replicate that and find it elsewhere. But I will say, after going to Couchbase, I mean, there are a lot of other companies that have a similar, vibe to those good VMware days, similar values. They're a lot more, small and growing and can be more nimble. And, there's a lot of market opportunities that are presenting themselves, especially with AI. So I think this, honestly, the market's not super easy out there right now, but I feel like this is a great opportunity to land somewhere else. And again, especially with, AI, like tech is on fire right now. Like there's so many different opportunities to try somewhere new. And I think the biggest difference going from VMware to Couchbase was just the company size. You know, VMware was, I think it was like 30,000 employees when I left. And, you know, Couchbase has less than 1,000 employees. So I thought that was going to be a massive kind of like culture shock experience, but I've actually found it to be a lot more fun, and you just get a lot more, you know, engagement with all levels throughout the company. You know, like I can have email or Slack exchanges with the CEO. I have one-on-ones with the CMO on a regular basis. So I've found that, you know, going to a smaller company that's still publicly traded, so it's big enough. Like I feel like that's been a good change for me, is being able to experience that and get access to more levels of the organization. But, you know, just some advice for some people, and I'm sure most people already know this, is, I mean, it's definitely easier to find a job when you already have a job. So, you know, while you still are employed, that's probably the best opportunity to start looking for other work, just because I think you can speak to your experience and what you're working on better. But then also, if it doesn't work out, you know, you still have your job to, you know, your day-to-day to fall back on. It's not the end of the world. And then also just keeping your resume and your LinkedIn, you know, ready at all times. Like I actually found, you know, the listing for the Couchbase role on LinkedIn. And I am a social media manager, so maybe that figures. But I think as you go throughout your career, sometimes when it's at the end, you forget about all these things you accomplished, or, you know, throughout the year, like these programs that you built, and some of the numbers and the metrics behind them and whatnot. So I think it's important to kind of, whenever there's like a major milestone or a project you worked on or something really impressive, like definitely make note of that, like on your LinkedIn or as in your resume. You always want that constantly updated, because people are on LinkedIn, whether it's, you know, recruiters and other companies, but, you know, even just for your own personal network and for your kind of career to be able to speak to it. I think keeping that updated is really important, and that paid dividends for me for sure.
Nice. Yep. Yeah, I think that's important for everybody in the community as everything is shifting, and we're still in the midst of Broadcom, right? Like Broadcom is going through a 3-year cycle, right? You know, they're spinning off EUC, right? They're determining levels of investments all over the place, right? So they say a 6-month plan, a 2-year plan, and then a 3-year plan, right? And at the end of 3 years, everything will be settled, right? And so all of us have to, you know, experience this and understand that, you know, there is life after that. And I remember coming to VMware when I went from Sun, which I left before Sun was sold to Oracle, but it was like in a year before, so things were already starting to crumble. And I came to VMware, and it was such a refreshing small company, 1,000 people, free lunches, CEO was at the lunch, could chat with everybody, and it was you know, like so much energy that I swore I would never work for another big company for 20 years again, ever, because I worked at Sun for maybe 15 years before I finally left. And I thought, yeah, I'm never doing that again. I'm gonna work at, you know, cool companies, and VMware was super cool, and it was fun, and Windows and everything was great. And then here I am, you know, 18 years later, you know, and I kind of say that I go, yeah, I should go work on Tesla Optimus, right? You know, like can do some marketing for robots, or go work at one of the cool robot companies now. But you know, it's all good. The ecosystem is here, and as long as we're here having fun, I guess it's still okay.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, I feel like I kind of had not like the reverse experience, but, you know, coming into VMware when I think when I started, it was more around like 20,000 employees, which is still quite big. And so I feel like I always liked the, you know, security of the bigger company. It's like, you know, we already have tons of customers, the big community, like it was just like, it felt more secure to me for some reason. Not that VMware, even prior to Broadcom, was, you know, immune to layoffs and restructures and management changes and things like that. But I always thought it was going to be more scary to go to, you know, that smaller company that was maybe more of like the startup phase, because it's like, you know, you don't know if they're going to make it or break it or what it's going to be. So I always felt like I more just wanted to stay put at VMware, and it was comforting to me. So when I made the move to Couchbase, it was definitely getting out of my comfort zone. But again, you know, things can go up, things can go down. But I think this was a good example of getting into a company when it was still in the growing stages, and it's really fun to see it just, you know, take off. And that's reflected in the customer momentum, that's reflected in the stock price, and again, the AI hype is contributing to that too. But I think it's really fun to be on that side of things, to see a company go from very small to scaling very rapidly. And it's a big difference from what I experienced at VMware.
Matt, we're almost at the top of the hour. Last words for you.
As far as a career arc, this has come up a couple of different times throughout various different iterations on the podcast, and I always have, my statement has been is I always admire people with the 5-year plan, because I personally don't subscribe to that philosophy. I think that the best things that I've been able to do with my career is, when the opportunity presented itself, to be nimble enough to A, know that it's an opportunity, and B, to jump on it. Mm-hmm. So, Tommy, you had just, iterated how, you thought you were going to be here forever. And mm-hmm. I thought the same thing when I came with VMware. I thought it was the end all to be all. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much maybe the organization, so to say, it's the people that you work with.
Yeah.
And, a great manager makes and breaks a job. So if you can be nimble, recognize opportunity, and go and work with someone at a managerial level that you trust and respect, it's a key to not only make yourself happy, but then to, progress along.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, this might sound a little bit like a cliche or something, but one thing that I really have valued, going to Couchbase is, my background is very similar to hundreds, if not thousands, of other people in the VMware community, switching jobs or let go or whatever it might be. But the VMware community is like, it's always there. It's always there. It doesn't matter if you leave, if you're working on different technology, whatever it might be, like the VMware community is always there. And that's something I knew would be there, even if I left to another company. So it's great to be able to come back and still hop on this podcast, so many years later. Like it's still awesome that it's still chugging along, still there. Eric's still hosting this. So it's just
KKR, Broadcom. It's something, one, it's something special. And two, it's beyond just a name.
Yeah.
I mean, we know what we have, and just because things are changing right now as far as ownerships and structures and whatnot, the community remains and will remain.
Yeah, exactly.
I am definitely looking forward to new tech coming out. We've been talking about all the changes and personnel and community. I just can't wait to see some new features could roll out of engineering, so we can talk about some cool tech that's coming.
I can't talk about it right now, but the stuff we're going to have this year for EUC is wow. I mean, that's awesome. We are going to have some stuff.
Stuff is good.
That's about as much as I can say, but
right.
Woo!
Right. Yeah, we're definitely not in product launch season now, so we're just kind of grinding along, right? But I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. Tommy Berry, you're in Austin, Texas. We just do a quick
Dallas,
Texas. Sorry, yeah, I knew that. The barbecue report, right? Do you guys get out and get barbecue? And if so, where in Dallas is your favorite place to get some barbecue or anything like that?
Okay, so I will say it's definitely one of those things where you just assume if someone lives in Texas, they're eating barbecue all the time. I will say Dallas isn't the best city in Texas for barbecue. So I would say we actually have it very little, but the best place in Dallas you can go, and they also have one in Austin, is Terry Black's. So Terry Black's is absolutely the best barbecue, I would say, in Dallas. And honestly, it's probably just our favorite barbecue, period. But Austin is definitely the city in Texas where if you want good barbecue, you go to Austin. So being in Dallas, we're a little outside of that, but Terry Black's in Dallas is the best.
Terry Black's in Dallas. Tony Foster, you've been quiet the whole show. Any words or any barbecue or anything you want to say, because you've been out there the whole time being nice and a good person?
Absolutely. I've seen some of the stuff Matt's talking about in the EUC space, and I agree it's going to be awesome. Barbecue wise, this weekend did a pork loin. Only I came very, very close to ruining it. I didn't pay attention to what temperature I set the alarm on my thermometer for. So instead of setting the alarm for 160 degrees, which is where you're supposed to cook pork to, I set it for 260 degrees. And about an hour in, I'm like, why is my alarm not going off? This thing should be done. Anyway, I very nearly ruined a pork loin. I
You
have
just
a
call
tip
it-
for how to recover.
Just call it crispy bacon.
Not quite. You take the pork loin, you wrap it in aluminum foil when you get it too hot, and immediately dump apple juice in there. Let that
The magic of apple
basically
juice.
steam.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much for that report. Tommy Berry, if people want to follow Couchbase or, go learn more about Couchbase, where would they go and who would they follow?
Yeah. So first of all, if you want to follow me, I'm still active on X, formerly Twitter, Mr. Tommy Berry. You can also find me on LinkedIn. When it comes to Couchbase, you can search for Couchbase. Also on X, LinkedIn is the platform we're most active and we get the most engagement. So check out LinkedIn. Also on Instagram. And then some of the more ones that we weren't really doing at VMware that we have a presence on that I would definitely check out. And part of it is, just the developer audience is Blue Sky, Threads, and even TikTok a little bit. So check us out on any of those platforms. Also, just a good place to go to get started and learn more about Couchbase would be blog.couchbase.com. A lot of good content there. And then community.couchbase.com if you want to see more about, our community offerings. You can join, similar to VMware, there's like a Discord group. You can become an ambassador. There's community forums. And then the last plug I have is tomorrow, Couchbase, we actually do have a pretty big announcement coming that's AI related. Obviously, I can't mention anything right now, but definitely check out tomorrow. Hopefully, there's some good news that I can share with everyone if anyone cares. But tomorrow, there will be a product announcement, so look out for that.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for doing a loop back and spending some time with us over our lunchtime podcast. I appreciate it, Tommy. Always great to see you, Corey, Matt. Always good to see everybody. Tony Foster, thanks for hanging out. We'll be back again next week, every Wednesday, 12 to 1, if we can do it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Recording paused.